Welcome to a new episode of the Cool Girls Create podcast. It's your favorite host, Taniesha Westbrook, and I am here with a very special guest. She's a fellow marketing girl, Julie Lilliston. Welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be chatting with you today.
Yes, yes. So Julie is an award-winning publicist. She was recently named one of Nashville Business Journal's Women of Influence, and she is a board member for a Black-owned bank here in Nashville. And so I'm excited to dive into this conversation about PR, marketing, your career. But before we get there, I like to start with an icebreaker. Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay. If there was any famous campaign out there that you could be a part of, is there one that comes to mind for you?
Oh, that's a good question. Famous campaign. Do you remember a few years ago when the girl was on Wall Street? The famous sculpture that appeared where the bull is on Wall Street, and she was called the Fierce Girl and had her hands on her hips and was staring down the bull. I think that would have been a fabulous campaign to be a part of.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that campaign, but
Hmm.
now I'm gonna have to go look it up because I literally watch campaigns from different brands and
Hmm.
I'm always
Hmm.
thinking of ideas or like how they could have improved it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I have to go check it out.
Yeah, check it out. That comes to mind. I think it won a Cannes Award. It was more of an advertising campaign and kind of dig into what was behind it, but it drew a ton of attention, just about women and girls and empowerment and leadership. And for me, that was a winning campaign.
Right. Okay. Sounds good. So let's get into a little bit of background information about you, Julie. So, where are you from? I always like to ask this question. Where are you from?
Well, I'm a Midwestern girl. I grew up in Ohio, so kind of out in the middle of cornfields and soybean fields, in rural America. And a very small town, about 1,000 people, and grew up there, went to high school there, college nearby, and just wanted to kind of explore from there. So yeah, my upbringing was definitely one surrounded by community, by family, and growing up in the time that I did, we had a ton of freedom in terms of like, the era that I am. And, you really learned early on, responsibility, how to take care of yourself, getting yourself to and from school, activities, things like that. So I was really involved in different things in school with music and in sports, through my high school career, and that kind of shaped and molded me.
That's awesome. So, I guess I'm a fellow Midwesterner. I was born in Chicago,
Oh,
so
yeah.
kind of in the
Mhm.
same area.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you're bringing up that sense of independence that you get,
Hmm.
like you mentioned in your era. But I'm a millennial. I hate to say that because
Hmm.
we get judged, but
I know.
I think I grew up in the 90s, so I think that we have that same sense of independence and responsibility. I'm the oldest of my siblings. Do you have any siblings?
I do. I'm the youngest of four, actually. So I'm the baby of the family, believe it or not. And, I hear from it, hear from my siblings in terms of, differences when I was growing up and when they were, and things that I was able to do or get away with, I guess is how they would describe it.
Exactly.
For
I feel some resentment because I
Yep.
yeah. Okay, so how did you get into PR and marketing? Like what sparked your interest there? And this is a follow-up question to that, but how did
Mhm.
you get to Nashville from
Yeah.
Ohio?
Yeah, it's kind of a circuitous route in how I got to Nashville. But I was always interested in writing and reading. And as soon as I learned how to read, that opened up so many worlds for me. And I just loved reading all kinds of books, fiction. So I gravitated to being an English major in college. They didn't have a PR program, or I didn't go to journalism school or anything like that. But I just wrote a lot and read a lot, and I knew I wanted to do something creatively with that.
Wait.
And
So before you get into that, so because
yeah.
I'm an avid reader, I started reading when I
Mhm.
was 3 years old. I would sit
Oh,
and
wow.
read the newspaper to my dad. So, but I'm into like, I grew up on like science fiction,
Mm.
things like that. What was your genre of choice to dive into?
My genre of choice was fiction, and I started probably more with contemporary fiction and kind of went back and, some English literature, and of course, all the things that they're required reading as you're growing up and going to school. But for me, contemporary writers really spoke to me. So from the get-go and growing up, and um, I just really enjoyed the college experience, being able to go and meet some of the writers that would come and go to their readings and their book signings and things like that. So, today I continue to read Barbara Kingsolver's Demon Copperhead was a fabulous novel that came out recently, and she was just recently here in Nashville at Parnassus Books, and she's been doing a book tour. But that novel really spoke to me because it talked about Appalachia and rural America and some of the challenges with addiction and poverty and things that certainly, influenced me in growing up. It brought back just rural America and some of the challenges, access to resources, education, just basic needs, and how that really shapes. So she's a fabulous writer, and I've read a lot of her books, but that's one that really sticks out in the past year that I've read, that I recommend anyone to check out.
Yes, I'm gonna have to check that out. And I'm also gonna put this idea that you just brought or this conversation about just underserved communities in general. We're gonna talk about that a little bit later because I really want to dive into that. But let's
Mhm.
get back to your actual
Yeah.
career. So how, again, how did you end up, in Nashville and in this
Mhm.
marketing PR space?
Yeah, so I ended up down here after I graduated college. It was the early 90s, and there was kind of an economic bust happening, a bit of a lull in job growth, and the economy was struggling a bit. So really wasn't sure, what I wanted to do professionally, and I started applying to volunteer programs. And one was called US2 through the United Methodist Church, which I had grown up in, and you serve somewhere in the US for 2 years. And my placement was Garrett Bennett Center here in Nashville. And that's actually how I got to Nashville. So came down here. My boyfriend at the time, husband now, is a musician, plays music on the side. And so he's like, yeah, I'd like to check out Nashville. So we came here, and it was a completely different city then. And, we just started kind of, carving our way. And when I was at Scarrett, one of the things that I did was to help promote the organization that was just shifting into be a conference and retreat center. It had been a Bible college and school for a number of years. So they were making this big shift. And so I was helping to promote some of the events that they were doing. And they had people come from all over the world for different conferences, for all kinds of events and programs and things that they were doing in the community. So I was helping to be the voice of the organization and getting this information out, and helping to promote the organization. And that's how I really fell into PR, was just by doing it and learning and working with the media and figuring out what makes a good story. And so from there, I had a few other jobs, spent some time at the chamber back when we were getting the Tennessee Titans and building Bridgestone Arena. So this is going back at a boom time of Nashville from what we're experiencing now. And then I went down to Austin, Texas, and just wanted a change, a shift. And I started working at a global agency in PR, Weber Shandwick, one of the top 5 firms, and was working in technology practice group. And so all my clients were out on the West Coast or the East Coast, and was working with them to do product launches, executive visibility, corporate communications, internal, external communications, and really learned the ropes of all of that. And that was at the kind of the boom and then the bust of the dot-com era that was happening. And that got me actually up to Chicago, where we spent a number of years before we moved back to Nashville. So I've kind of taken this little loop around the country. Spent 10 years in Chicago and had a fabulous time working on all kinds of campaigns. Worked for a lot of global brands, multinational companies, and worked across offices. So that's the luxury of being at such a large firm, is being able to work across all different disciplines and bringing in crisis or public affairs or digital shops. You name it, any expertise we had at our fingertips, because I was part of a company that was a holding company. So they owned lots of PR and advertising agencies and marketing firms. And we just collaborated constantly. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, that was a really fun time and learned a ton. And then my husband and I were looking to relocate and thought about looking at Nashville again. And of course, this had been like 25 years. So lots of changes. I literally called up people that I had worked with and known and had experiences with back when we were here in the 90s and said, hey, we're thinking of moving back. And they opened their doors, opened their Rolodex, opened their hearts and minds. And I was able to kind of book a little tour for myself and come down here and kind of see what the climate was like for jobs and what was going on. And I was completely blown away by all of the growth and the change. I just couldn't believe that this was the same city. And
Mhm.
so from there, I think by the end of it, by the end of that week, I had a job offer and we decided to make the move.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was quite of a whirlwind, but really great experiences in terms of my career, just kind of following the path and the opportunities as they came.
Yes, it's so many things in your story that I think are interesting. So the first thing is Scarrett Bennett Center. I'm very
Yeah,
familiar because we host Shop Black Fest there,
awesome.
and this I think we're going into our fourth year. So I'm very familiar with the background, and it's interesting that you started in the space where you just dove in, right? Like
That's
the
exactly it.
opportunity was there for you to help
Mhm,
them promote their new program or their transition into, from
mhm,
Bible college to a conference retreat center. And
mhm,
I can identify with that because that's how my journey started 10 years ago, right after college. And I was talking to a mentee, I think literally like yesterday, and I told her the best thing to do is to just dive in. That's
mhm,
the way you learn, that's the way you get experience. You just go for it. And so that stood out to me about your story. But then also, I came to Nashville in 2008. And so to see the transition from 2008 to 2024 and live here
mhm.
that entire time has been mind blowing for me. So I can't imagine how it felt for you to go from rural, where you lived in Ohio, down to Nashville, down further south, up to Chicago, where Chicago is like a mecca city. And
Mhm.
even in your career, I was thinking about going from a place that is in, the South. They run a little bit slower, a little bit differently, and you were like matriculating through your journey, and then the level of opportunities rose.
Mhm.
So in my mind, I'm like, she started with, one company and then transitioned into a career where you have all of these resources and opportunity for experience. And then you
Mhm.
brought that up right on back down to
That's right.
Nashville.
You're absolutely right.
Yes, and
Yeah.
I just identify with that.
Yeah, I think that, being open to experiences, putting yourself out there, taking those risks, that is critical. I think for me, just living in general, if I was going to be a business owner or not, I think I always had to have kind of what is the next challenge. Um, And being open to jumping in and learning as you go, I think is also really critical, because all of the people that I have been surrounded by and people I can learn from, clients, colleagues, just some of the best that I have ever worked with, and to be open to those experiences, some of those learning experiences along the way as well. And how you adapt is really critical, in being really versatile also. So, some people really are like, well, you got to carve out a niche. You have to really figure out what that is and specialize. And there's a lot of truth to that. And you can go really far in your career if you pick out one thing and you really focus on it and have that niche. But I also think that there's a benefit in being a generalist and being able to jump in and learn. That's one of the things with PR and marketing is, you have to get really skilled really quickly at learning, just enough so you can then get out there and start promoting and working on behalf of your clients. Your clients are the expert, but you need to know how to position that in the market. And so with PR, I think it's the same thing, where I need to know just enough about the industry. And I work a lot in business to business, so it can get really a lot of technology, some healthcare, professional services, and you can get really granular and really extremely detailed. And I have to know how to dive in and then jump back out and be able to then translate what it is they're doing and why it benefits a particular audience to then, work with media and help tell their story. So there are a lot of different skills like that. And for me, that's the challenge is, okay, how do you figure out how are you going to position this particular client or product or service that they're offering and the benefits, and being able to, work with media, traditional media in particular, to get them excited about it, to write about it, and dive into kind of what's that story.
Yes. And this is the perfect segue into the topic of entrepreneurship, but
Mm-hmm.
also positioning.
Mm-hmm.
So I've worked with, at this point, over 4,000 small business owners, and
Wow.
specifically solopreneurs, business owners who may be bootstrapping or figuring
Mm-hmm.
it out. They're in the first 5 years of their business. And so most entrepreneurs and business to business and the business to business industry. And
Mm-hmm.
so what I found is that most entrepreneurs believe that the key to success and for their business to blow up is marketing. Now,
Mm.
marketing is a broad topic, but in their mind, the answers to their prayers are, I need marketing, and that is what is going to be the solution. And so what I love about what you're saying is that we also need to pay attention to how we're positioning our brand or the product or the service to our audience, particularly the people that are going to be the most interested in purchasing whatever this is. But a
Mm-hmm.
lot of entrepreneurs miss that, how they miss the storytelling and the um the personal connection part, which I
Mm-hmm.
think is very important when it comes to PR and marketing. And so a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times you haven't figured out what the benefits of your product or service is, or how to position it correctly, and then you pull in a PR expert like yourself, or you hire an agency, but
Mm-hmm.
then we have to work backwards to get all of that done. So I want to
Right.
talk to you specifically about the challenges that you find businesses have, especially in the business to business space when it comes to positioning and um, getting your story, product, service out there to the media for them to be interested in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question, and really good insight in terms of the challenges. I think a lot of clients, potential clients, that I've worked with think that, I just need PR because nobody has heard of us. Nobody knows what we do. Nobody, is really out there advocating on our behalf or engaging with us. How do we do that? So you're absolutely right. You have to take several steps back and take a look at and figure out Where are the little nuggets that then we can work with and turn this into a story, and finding out maybe it's around the entrepreneur's origin story and how they got started, and how they started this business and why, and what the problem is that they're solving. A lot of times they may want to kind of skip to the end, and we're like, well, here's the product, here's how much it costs, here's the benefits, here's the product spec sheet or the features and all of that. And that's not going to really work in the PR space. That could be background material, that those could be facts and stats and some of the successes and things that you've had with your products or services that could help supplement, but that's not the story. So really being able to dive in and figure out, well, who are some of the clients that you've worked with, the customers that you've had that have benefited through your products or services, and let's start there. And are they willing to talk to the media? I think that's a big differentiator, particularly between advertising and PR, is that, PR is what others say about us, and advertising, we have complete control over it. It's our message, our brand, our look, our feel. We're exactly selecting where it's going to appear and how much it's going to cost. And PR is very collaborative. It is co-creating. It's talking to media and getting them interested in a story and then packaging it up. So not only can you talk to the CEO and have an interview, but you can speak to a few customers of theirs. You can speak to an other industry expert, industry analyst, and get some opinion from them. And so being able to do that and supplement it with visuals and infographics and other materials that help tell that complete story is really what it takes to rise above. It's much more about outcomes rather than outputs. I think a lot of times I have to educate clients on exactly what PR is and how it works, and that it's not necessarily a list of activities that we're just generating and pushing out there and hope that something sticks. I'm sure you hear
Keep
this very
doing,
familiar.
you're making my heart sing.
That's
Uh,
great.
yes. So one of the things that I wanted to follow up, like a follow-up question,
Mm-hmm.
is so I recently did like this speaking engagement where I was partnered with a news anchor and news producer. And
Mm-hmm.
so we got into the conversation about news stories, especially for entrepreneurs, brick and mortar businesses, that type of thing, and pitching your story
Mm-hmm.
to the news in these outlets. And so one of the things that I find, and to be candid, has been my personal struggle, has been thinking that my story is not interesting enough for the media to pick it up or for my audience to be engaged with it. So, do you have any particular advice for business owners in the business to business space
Mm-hmm.
or otherwise about how to craft a great story that the media would be interested in?
That's a great question. And it's interesting because those are the kinds of things that I, struggle with on my own with my own business. But for my clients, I can do it all day long and advocate for them all day
Yes,
and tell their
that's a struggle.
story.
Maybe
It's
that's a
hard.
creative struggle or something. Cause
It
yeah,
is. It's kind of a block. It's almost like it feels really self-promotional, like pitching myself out there. Who's going to listen to? So that's one of the first things that when clients get excited that they find someone who provides PR or marketing services is, yes, thank God I don't have to do this myself. I think that a lot of entrepreneurs are just like, I do not want to be doing this myself because I'm not going to be as good at it. It's hard to get that objective viewpoint in writing
mhm.
about yourself or talking about yourself. I think a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with that. So, myself included. And, I think one thing to think about, and I really specialize a lot in executive visibility and thought leadership. And for B2B, that's where it's at in terms of PR. It's not about selling, it's about educating. So if you think about, okay, what are those one to two things that I can really own that I am an expert in, and I can share this expertise, then it doesn't feel so salesy. Then it doesn't feel so self-gratuitous and I'm out here and promoting myself. I'm really getting to the heart of figuring out, here's the problem that's out there and here's the solution that I have. So I really orient and work with my clients to help identify what those topics are that they can really own. and then developing some of the positioning and messaging framework. And that's diving into some of those elements of the story and kind of breaking it down and figuring out, okay, we're providing this service, and here are some of the potential, customers and what their stories are. And then you really get down to like some of the proof points, and that's, maybe it's efficiency, maybe it's cost savings, looking for some of those metrics that are really going to resonate with their target customer and be like, yes, I need this because we're spending way too much, or we need to rein in a particular area. So they start to make that connection with what it is that you're offering and how they can benefit. And so that's what I do, is really work with clients to develop those platforms that then you can pitch out to media, or you can develop into speaking platforms and speaking engagements. And then awards is like the third piece that I work on with clients, because that's also another area where
Ooh,
entrepreneurs a
teach
lot of
me
times,
something.
yeah, they don't like to nominate themselves. They think I don't have anything
Is
that's really,
that okay? Because I feel weird about it. I'm like, maybe I
it's a,
should send this to someone. Please nominate me.
yeah, you could totally do. I've done it. I've said, hey, I'd love to be nominated for this. Do you mind doing it? And I'll write it up and send it to them, and they'll send it in. It's absolutely 100% okay. You can self-nominate for a lot of awards. And my advice is on awards, it's very similar, I think, to job interviews, where in particular, I find that women won't go for a job interview unless they feel they're 80% qualified. I feel like it's the same thing with awards. So we have to get over that, because the honest truth is that you've done the work. You might as well get the credit for it. You've earned this recognition, so go for it. And once you submit for these awards, then you have the information that you can just keep adding to year over year. And it's not as cumbersome and time consuming, because you have a good base to work from. And I think that's important, because it's time consuming to do these things.
Yes, it is. But
Yeah.
like you said, once you have the information, then
Mhm.
you just add to it, you refine it as you go. And that's
Absolutely.
been easier for me. That's just like, having a speaker bio or
Hmm.
a
That's
keynote
right.
that you have. And what I would like to add to what you're saying is she's speaking directly to the business to business space.
Hmm.
However, what you're saying can be helpful to anyone in any industry, whether
Hmm.
you are an entrepreneur or you're living your best corporate life. But
That's
the
true.
the one thing that I've learned about branding, because that's my superpower, right? Is connecting with my audience and telling that story. But it's more so about, like you said, the connection between what are the things that you have an expertise on? What are the problems out there where you have solutions to? What are those nuggets that you have that can really help or resonate with your audience? And if you focus on that, it gets so much easier to come up with content ideas or topics.
Yeah.
And then you won't have to focus on sales. And
Hmm.
so on the back end, I'm typically explaining to my, clients as well, education around the difference between branding and marketing and PR and how all of those things work together. And it's a long game. So if you focus, right,
Absolutely.
it's yes, yes. I
It
feel
is
like
a
I'm
long
preaching.
game. I love it. I love it. They
Um,
absolutely all need to work together, and it is the long game. PR, at least like 6 months to a year to really start getting that momentum and start getting that traction. The other thing I wanted to mention about PR in particular, and thinking about what's going to resonate, is that a lot of it is about reading. So being a natural, lover of
Ooh,
books and reading all kinds of things, I dive into whatever industry it is. Maybe it's, looking at technology and in this particular space of software, and what are the trends, and start looking at competitors, start looking at the reporters and the writers and the publications and all the different medium that we could be out there. And what are they saying, and what are the trends? That's how you cultivate the ideas, because you see what's out there and what's already being covered and what's not being covered. And so, okay, well, we have a perspective that we could offer on this particular issue, on where the industry is going. And that's your end, that's your angle. So I'm always working and looking for the angles.
You just took the words out of my mouth. I was gonna say, yes, it's all about finding your angle.
Yes.
And thank you for clearing that up because I was before we transition into discussing more details about like your personal journey.
Hmm.
Um, I would like for you to break down in layman's terms to our cool girls about what positioning is. And you talked about that a little bit, but you know, buzzwords right now in the marketing PR space is, you know, positioning, thought leadership. But
Hmm.
what does
Hmm.
that really mean in a practical sense? If
Hmm.
I'm someone who's doing this on a day to day as a business owner. So just give us a little bit more color on that.
That's a great question. And I think a good place to start is kind of around the brand. And I believe it was Jeff Bezos who said your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room.
Yes.
That's it right there. So what is it that you want people to think about you when you're not there? What are those words, those adjectives, those descriptors that come to mind when people think about you, or if you come up in conversation when you're not there? So kind of start there and think, what is it that you want to be known for? That's a really good place to start.
Yes.
And I think what was it? The word of the year last year was authenticity, which is just like it's everywhere. It became the word, became pivot.
Buzzword.
Pivot from the
Yes.
pandemic turned into authenticity. And it's like, okay, I'm so tired of hearing this. But it is true. It's like, you think, oh, I have to be a certain way or act a certain way because now I'm a business owner and I need to get myself out there. And how do I do that? And it really truly is just, being yourself and being confident in what it is that you have to offer. I mean, you matter, your opinions matter, your thoughts matter in terms of the industry that you're in, you know what you're doing. So it's just a matter of getting comfortable and sharing that. And that comfort comes with a practice. It comes with more opportunities that you have to share your story. And then you realize, oh, I could have cut out these three things and focus on this. And it just comes with that practice and the opportunity. But you have to be willing to go for it and put yourself out there and take the risk and see how it shakes out, see what the
Yes.
response is. So a lot, and I'm sure you know this, like with marketing, it really is experiential. So, and you
Yes.
have to be able to try different things to kind of see what's going to work and resonate and continually evolve it as you go. But thinking about positioning in particular, so what do you want to be known for? What are the areas of expertise that you could really focus on? And positioning is also taking that deep dive into the market and looking at competitors, looking at how their brand is being positioned out in the market and what are they offering and what are they known for and what kind of engagement are they getting and recognition are they getting and where do you fit into that? And it helps to really understand that and take that competitive audit and looking at, how they're written about in the news, who's covering them, from what angles, who's doing the talking, is it the CEO or some other subject matter expert within the organization, who really owns that brand. A lot of times with entrepreneurs, of course, they're the face of the organization, they're the face of the company, the brand. And so really think about how that is how you're being written about, how you're being featured, what is resonating, what our audience is kind of gravitating towards, what are they missing? And then like, well, I'm not really hitting on this topic enough because it's not coming up anywhere in the media or in the coverage. And I think message pull through, that's a key metric for PR. Are we really getting our messages out there? Is it resonating? Are people writing about it and excited about it? I do want to mention one thing about media before we jump on. I attended a session recently, and I had a panel of media experts, assignment editors, reporters, journalists, and they were saying I think they get about, and this is local, up to 500 emails a day, 500 pitches that they have to wade through. And I know it's outrageous. I get like 100 emails a day, and it's not people pitching me all of their ideas
Right.
all day. So you can imagine, and I think like there's a maybe 30% open rate and a 3% response rate. It's unbelievable the amount of the volume that they are getting every day. So it's critical that you read, watch, listen to the journalists and the publications and the outlets, the online outlets that you are pitching, because you need to know what they have already covered, what they've written about, how they write. Some of these publications may not be for you. Like I've had opportunities that clients have come to me with all excited, and I'm like, have you listened to this podcast? Because I mean,
I'm not sure about
Snarky
this
doesn't
one.
cover it. Like they really go for the jugular and ask you these tough questions. If you like that kind of environment and think that's going to help your brand, and that's, you know, you want to swim with some sharks, then go for it. But if that's not where you want to be, you know, so and again, they just may be thinking, oh, this is a big national outlet and we need to go for it. And you really need to do your research. That's just critical.
Yes, and to add to that, specifically about pitching your business, this nugget that I got from the news anchors, and shout out to Kelsey Gibbs and Tegans.
Oh,
These are
yeah.
so
Yeah.
one thing
Yeah.
that she
Great.
said is like if you're sending a press release or you are pitching a story, make sure that you are thoughtful about the subject line in your email. Think, headline, right? Think
Mhm.
think headlines when it comes to your subject line and the first few lines on the press release. And I know that might sound simple, but a lot of us, including myself, have not done that before. I'll put
Mhm.
all of the
Mhm.
juicy stuff at the bottom of the press release
Right.
or
They're
at the
never going to
bottom
make
of the email. Not gonna make it. They're not
it.
gonna make it. So I
Yeah.
wanted to add that point. Now, this
Point.
conversation, Julie, is so good. I do want to hop into the personal journey
Sure.
portion, but I do have one more thoughtful question for you.
Mhm.
So when it comes to branding in particular, I would like your thoughts on this. I strongly believe that creating a brand that's authentic and connects with people and actually gets the message out there is not just about your online reputation, but also what you're doing offline in your community, in your
Mhm.
industry, and things like that. And so I like to encourage people to really get out there, um, to be known, because a part of the branding is that actual real personal connection. So, whether you're doing networking or you're hosting your own events or you're just showing up in the community and industry that you're in to become a
Mhm.
leader, I think that's important. But what are your thoughts on that connection and PR and branding?
I think that is absolutely critical what you just pointed out, because your brand cannot exist online alone. That it just can't, it won't be sustainable. People see right through that. You're posting all of this out, and okay, you know, here they are again. And if you're not out in the community and you're not out serving and you're not making those personal connections and building an actual real network of people that you know and trust, then you're just going to stay at that same place. And eventually it's just going to be kind of like noise. It's just going to, people are just going to kind of keep going and not really pay attention. So I think you absolutely, for the strength of a brand, have to put your money where your mouth is. You need to be out there and making those personal connections. And I think that, I'm a living testament to that, because I do no advertising. I really do very little PR for myself or my business, because what gets me excited is being able to share some expertise, educating different communities, serving in those communities. And that's how I've grown my business. It's been through referral. It's been through introductions people have made. And this is, being in part of a community of women business owners has been tremendous for me, because that really helped catapult my business to levels that I never had dreamed of. But it started with serving within these organizations and being a part of it and being a part of this community. I feel that, I have everything that I need to grow my business because I'm connected to these different organizations and have served in these organizations. So being able
Can
to
you
learn.
can you talk a little bit
Yeah.
about that? Just like more details on organizations. So for
Yeah.
example, Cool Girls, I am on
Hmm.
the board of Nashville Cable. I'm on the board
Hmm.
of NBIC, Nashville Business Incubation Center.
Yeah.
You're on the board for Citizens Bank. But
Hmm.
why is that important? for you to serve in these types of organizations?
I think it's important for you to really look at the types of organizations that speak to you, that are doing work that align with your values. I think that is the critical thing. For me, this is the first time be having my own business where it lines up with my values. There were times, working in these other large global organizations, I didn't get to pick and choose clients that I worked on. They just they came if I believed in what they did or not. So it was very different. And so for me, I think it's very important to find ways to give back in the community and support the community. So I think early on when I started my business, I attended some NABO meetings, which is the National Association of Women Business Owners, national organization, and have a chapter here in Nashville, and started getting connected with other women business owners who we have since been able to team up and work on clients together and go after bigger accounts and pieces of business together. And that to me is like, that's the best, because they're all business owners. Most of them are all women. We're just working together, and I would much rather collaborate than compete. And I think there are a lot of women business owners out there who have the same thinking. And it's just been the way that, for me, that it's been business development. And I'm a past chapter president of NABO here, and I always go to the national conferences. And I had an opportunity in January to speak at the NABO Leadership Academy in Charlotte. And I talked about executive visibility, thought leadership, how to do this for your own businesses, because there's a lot you can do yourself before you ever hire anyone out. And it was a fabulous opportunity. And that came from a colleague and a dear friend, and in the business. I'll give a shout out to Jacqueline Hayes with Crayons and Marketers. We have worked on a lot of clients together. And with her suggestion, again, your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room, is a testament to that. And she mentioned me, and we started the conversation, and I had that opportunity. So I just think it's very critical to continue to build your networks. And another one that I'm a part of, I'm a certified woman-owned business through WeBank, the Women's Business Enterprise National Council. And there are about 18,000 certified women-owned businesses around the country. So that's a huge network to be a part of. And we're part of the regional partner organization that's headquartered in New Orleans, and called WeBank South, Women's Business Enterprise Council South. So the whole goal of being certified as a woman-owned business is to help level the playing field. So those procurement officers, heads of supplier diversity that are looking for women-owned businesses to contract with, it's the Fortune 500. They are all corporate members of WeBank at the national level. And so they have conferences. We have one coming up in Denver in March, our national conference, but there are a lot of regional and local events all throughout that network. And a way that I've been able to grow my business is that I work with a lot of the other women business enterprises, or WBEs. They don't have the internal marketing, communications, PR support, or corporate communications, but they need those services. So I encourage any business to look at and see how being a certified woman-owned business may benefit you, either if you want to go after large contracts with the Fortune 500, or you want to do business with other women business owners, to look into that organization. And that's been huge for me, because I've been able to grow through referral and working with some of the business owners, and then getting recommended for others. And I try to do the same with others. So the more women business owners that I know about and know what they do and the services and the products they provide, I can make those introductions and referrals. I can hire them for services. And I just think it's a fabulous ecosystem to be a part of.
Yes. And so now we're going to segue into the personal journey, but it's very so you talked about serving,
Mhm.
being a servant leader, but also it seems, and I may be making an assumption, but I think we have some overlap here, but providing education opportunities to underserved communities. So
Mhm.
for me, it's important to have this platform to provide what I like to call free game right, to my audience, and specifically Black women. I want to talk
Mhm.
about Black women in those underserved communities because the information that you just gave about how to attach yourself to an ecosystem, how
Mhm.
to collaborate with other business owners to get bigger opportunities, bigger contracts, more
Mhm.
revenue, putting yourself into organizations where you can provide expertise and make connections. Those are all things that someone like me just learned about, and I've been an entrepreneur for over 10 years. I
Mhm.
probably just started integrating into communities and ecosystems like that maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And
Mhm.
so I
Mhm.
want to talk about your personal journey when it comes to really focusing on serving these underserved communities. What has that been like for you? What have been some pivotal moments for you? And why do you think it's important?
Oh yeah, I think it's critically important. I really believe in equity, and I from the get-go when I started working with women business owners, I could just see a huge disparity and a gap. And it's like, well, why is there this gap with women business owners and particularly Black women business owners and having opportunities, access to opportunities? And I just felt we've just got to dismantle that. I want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of, breaking down some of those barriers, or, perceptions that could be out there. So I get really excited when I have an opportunity to, knock down some of those walls and help position a Black woman owner, business owner, as an expert in their industry and in their field and just see them soar and grow. That to me is the most meaningful, fulfilling work that I can do. And it's just highly important to me because I just believe in that collaboration and the whole, better together philosophy. And so, just from the beginning of collaborating and working together, I found um, Black women business owners really open, welcoming, excited to collaborate and work with me, and we're ready for it. They're like,
Hmm.
let's go, we're
Yes.
gonna take the chance and take the risks. And it's just been exciting. And so anything that I can do to kind of help make those introductions, help them learn and grow as I learn and grow from them and their experiences and where they're headed. Um, I've just learned a tremendous amount, and I just want to keep it going and keep that knowledge transfer going so that it just doesn't stop with me, but then how can I share some of those experiences and make further introductions, and when they're ready to move on and to bigger and better things, and maybe our time has cycled out and they want to move on, make an introduction, for someone else that they can work with, or a bigger agency that they could work with as they grow. So to me, it's just, it's all part of that ecosystem. It just keeps going and growing. And it's
Right.
kind of it's it's tight. It's definitely not something that, I jump in and out, or, I'm a part of it. I'm always going to be a part of it. And to me, it's just necessary work to do.
Yes, and just to tie this all back into what you mentioned earlier about, so when you think underserved communities,
Mhm.
there is a list, right? But you
Mhm.
mentioned, the rural aspect of it,
Mhm.
which is something that is new to me. So I'm thinking, inner city, like that
Mhm.
can be an underserved community. But I've really been exposed to I've really been exposed to um, you know, opportunities that aren't necessarily around for areas where, say, you're outside of the city, uh, I'm gonna say guideline, the city parameters or whatever.
Mhm.
And so how are you getting access to those groups, those opportunities, especially as a business owner? So I
Mm-hmm.
just wanted to like tie that back into what we were discussing about
Mm-hmm.
purpose.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. I can honestly say I'm absolutely 100% living my purpose right now. It's to help other women business owners succeed and thrive and grow. And it's just, that's it. That's really the heart of what I want to do. I work with other small businesses too, and that are male owned, and a lot of nonprofits. That's also part of my work that I do in helping to support them. And I think there's all kinds of underserved communities, as you said, just having access. Like for me, it started like with education. I'm the first to go to college out of my family.
Me
Um,
too. Yeah, you
yeah,
know.
yeah,
So
yeah,
even that,
yeah,
in
it's a
itself,
big
that
deal.
journey.
Yeah, and it wasn't just any school. I chose a private liberal arts school. It was like, why did I do that and not go to a state school? I don't, this is before like all of the internet and education and figuring out how much these things are going to cost. And so when I'm signing all these student loans, I'm like, okay, I'll be able to get a job. And then of course I end up doing this volunteer program. I did was able to defer my loans for a while, and I did get some money because one of the programs I did with after the scare, it was AmeriCorps, and that's what it was tied into, and I got some. So look into those kinds of resources because you have to resource yourself. You have to figure out, how am I going to do this? What's going to make sense? You don't necessarily need to go into the debt that I did, but I was able to get it
We
paid
can all
back.
relate. I
It,
don't
oh
even like
man,
thinking about my student loan debt. Let's just
a heavy lift, and any forgiveness out there for student loans, I'm all for it because I really didn't know what I was getting into in signing. I mean, I knew what I was signing. I was going to have to pay this back eventually, but it's not real at the time. You're just
right.
going to school. I did work study. I had a few scholarships.
Hmm.
I worked my butt off in high school to even be able to get into this school. And I think there's probably um, yeah, I was a top 10 out of my class, but it was a tiny little class of like 100, a little over 100, from this school. But a lot of people either went into the military, they worked in the family farm, or, a few percentage of us went to college. Like, and
Hmm.
some of them just went to work right out of high school. That was it. They weren't, college was not a part of the plan. So I already, was a minority of people, in that segment, especially going to the school I went to, where kids had gone to boarding schools and private high schools and had a lot of advantages, were at a completely different place from their education than I was. And so it was a steep hill to climb for
Hmm.
sure. A lot of socioeconomic differences. Um, it was like, okay, how am I going to fit into this? Where do I belong? And, how am I going to succeed? You
That's
know?
so interesting that
Hmm.
um those are the thoughts and experiences that you had because I could definitely relate to all of those things.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it goes across generations or, our ethnicity or just our
Yeah.
experience as women. But that's why having conversations like this is so important and why I love this platform, right? So, y'all, we've had such a good conversation. And I hate to bring it to a close, but I want us to get into the last segment of this
Hmm.
conversation, which is a quick fire round. So I'll just give you some questions really quickly. You give me the first answer that comes to your mind, and then I would like for you to close us out with advice for the cool girls, the creative women, the dream chasing women out there, that will really resonate with them on their journey. Are you
Okay.
ready, Julie?
I guess I'm ready. We'll see.
Okay, here we go. Your favorite travel destination.
Oh, favorite travel destination. That's a great one. Well, in the US, I'd say New Orleans. It's
Oh, I love New Orleans. All
love
right.
it.
Yes. Top three things on your bucket list.
Oh man, bucket list. I definitely want to travel to Europe. I haven't been to Europe, so that's a big one. Do a little ancestral, pilgrimage. That's good. Another thing on my bucket list. Oh man, this is tough. Um, It's tough because I don't even know if I have a bucket list, to be
Oh,
honest.
well, okay, so like mine is
So,
skydiving.
mm,
Um, One is this is work related, but I'd really love to open like a couples resort for business on like couples that are in business together.
that's a good
Um,
one.
that's like random. But yeah, okay. So do you have an item that you can't live without that's a part of your daily routine? If so, what is it?
Oh man, well, I'm a coffee person, so coffee is definitely it's right there. But with the coffee is also the meditation. I
Oh,
have a
yes.
coffee, then I've got to do my meditation and I'm ready to go and start my day, a little bit of journaling. So I guess that's three answers. But that all goes together for me in the morning to kind of start my day off.
Okay, last question. What is your favorite guilty pleasure TV show?
Oh man. I don't know why I keep watching The Bachelor and The Bachelorette. I gave up on it. I don't know how long ago. I was like, I have this is not why am I watching this? And then
Okay,
I end up watching it again and I find that, I just kind of get sucked into it. It has been how many seasons? We've seen how many people, and I don't know what it is, but it keeps drawing me back into watching that.
that is hilarious. And please don't judge me, but I've never watched a single episode of either of those
Don't
shows.
don't start.
Don't start. All right, so let let's close out with a final word from Julie, who has been a phenomenal guest. What advice would you like to leave with our audience today?
I'd like to leave, for the cool girls courageous, you've got to keep creating. You have to believe in yourself at all costs and have your own back. I think that's one thing that over the past 5 years that I've really done is just a lot of deep dive and a lot of work on myself. And just look at it, I was really tough on myself, high standards. Be good to yourself. You deserve it. Treat yourself really, really well and just be kinder to yourself because everybody can always improve, everybody can always move up, but you have to have that kindness that you might give to others for yourself.
I love that. And she just said that so eloquently that I don't even need to add anything. So I would like to thank you, Julie, for spending this time with us. And that's the perfect word of advice to close us out because we are always hard on ourselves as women. We wear so many hats. We put all of these pressures on ourselves to um, live up to what society standards are. And so I think it's important for you to just be kind to yourself. And that's a
Mhm.
lesson, something that I'm implementing daily and working
Mhm.
on. So thank you for joining Cool Girls Create today. And Taniesha and Julie signing out. See y'all later.